So I have a question here, and it's what's the best way to find winning products for Facebook Marketplace? I've been getting a variation of this question a lot, and honestly, it's something that I think about too. Like I'm always constantly thinking like, what are better ways to figure out winning products? And so I figured I'd make a video on it. Now I've got six, or I guess it's five, and then another bonus tip. So we'll say six ways that have been working well for me. Chances are like, if I make another video like this in a month from now or a couple weeks from now, this very well could change. Like some of these might still be in there, but there probably will be other things that I come across that work a lot better. And so I'm just kind of outlining my ideas and what has worked well for me to find winning products that obviously sell. Now the first one is going to be common sense, right? But it's the one that actually works the best for me, okay? And this is just list a bunch of different things, right? We've all heard this before. Nobody likes to hear this, but what you want to do is you want to list a bunch of different things, and with a software like Z-Drop, it's super easy to do that quickly, okay? Now the idea here when you're listing a bunch of different things is if they sell, great, that's phenomenal. But essentially what you're doing is you want to think of yourself as like kind of like a fisherman, right? And you're setting up a bunch of different fishing rods in different lakes potentially. It's a weird metaphor, but just run with it, right? So maybe you're like a fisherman and you're setting up like different fishing rods that are sitting there and automatically fishing, and then basically where you catch the fish is where you want to go back to that lake, right? So what do I mean by that? So you're going to list a bunch of different things. Maybe you try a bunch of different products. Maybe you list like, I don't know, like outdoor furniture, right? Or patio furniture. Maybe you list like ceiling fans, or maybe you list like wallpapers, one I'm experimenting with right now, or whatever, right? A number of different types of products that you just have like a hypothesis about this could be a product that might sell well on Facebook, right? Figure out like a supplier, list like 5 different variations of that product that you think are going to be winners, right? And you can do this very, very easy with Z-Drop. Like I'm talking like realistically like 20, 30 seconds a listing, but more, I guess realistic is probably like a minute to like minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes if you're really kind of setting up a good listing. But keep in mind here, it's like as you're listing these kind of, fishing rod type of listings, you're just trying to get, data essentially. Think of yourself as like a scientist running an experiment, right? List 5 of these products, 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 etc., etc. And then over a day or two, you want to come back to those products. Obviously, you're listing other things in the meantime and playing around with things, but you're going to come back to those products after you've accumulated like 48 hours of data and see what the numbers tell you, right? Because ultimately we can speculate. We can go through the other different things here, using software, reverse engineering competitors, which I'm going to talk about here in a second, and all these other strategies. But ultimately, the best way to do it is going to be what Facebook tells you via the data, right? So you can see all the views, and chances are, if you do this enough, you're going to have experiments like I have, where like it's been successful, and slowly over time, especially if you're listing them like 5 of a certain product in a row, you're going to start seeing patterns of like, okay, this type of product is getting a lot of views, whereas this type of product is getting like next to none. And so if you're listing a couple of them and you're looking at the data, you can pretty much assume like, I should list more of this because it looks like there's interest right there, right? And so that's kind of the way that I'd recommend it. List a bunch of different things, throw your metaphorical rods in the water in different lakes with different products, and see where the fish are biting, and then simply list more of those types of things. And for a perfect example of this is like, I was going through, I forget the supplier, it might have been Walmart when I was first starting, but I was listing like a bunch of outdoor things, and I listed like a couple of bubble machines. I think it was from Walmart, it might have been Target. Let's just go with Walmart for the example. I'm pretty sure it was. So I listed like a bunch of different bubble machines, and for whatever reason, like I saw like 3 of them get like a bunch of views immediately, right? So it was like up to 100 views, like almost within like the first like 10, 15 minutes. And I was like, oh, there's a bunch of winners here. So I listed a bunch of those because those 3 that I listed initially didn't sell well. Like I don't think I've ever sold them, to be honest. I'd have to go back and look. But one of them that I listed because of seeing all the views on those did end up selling well, and I listed that from a different supplier, right? So I listed bubble machines from a bunch of different suppliers, and one of them actually hit, and I've been selling a lot of those recently, okay? So this works, this type of, look at the data, list a bunch of different things, and throw your metaphorical fishing rods in the water does work. Use it to your advantage. And then once you obviously have, like, you've tested a hypothesis with a product, you've seen that it's getting interest and views. If you sell one, great, that's totally perfect. And then optimize that listing, maybe optimize your price a little bit, but then list more of that. List like 15 to 20 variations of that type of product. And that's where you're really gonna hit home and find a good niche. And then obviously rinse, repeat, recycle, keep doing that with different things and you will find good products, okay? So that's first and foremost. I think that that's still the best way to do it, at least in my opinion. And this has been working very, very, very well for me, probably the best. The second way is to use software to gauge hot selling products, okay? So there's so many different softwares out there, like I'm not gonna go name, like just drop down the list, but like for eBay, for example, you can, if you have an eBay seller account, you can literally use I forget what it's called in the back end of eBay because I don't really sell there that much right now. But like whatever the software in the back end of eBay is, they literally give you like the product research data of like what's selling well and certain things like that. You can use that. You can also use a software like Zeek Analytics for eBay. There's other softwares out there that work very, very well that show you like hot selling products on eBay. You can also like search things and just look at the sold and completed if you want to go that route and you don't want to pay for software. You can also on Amazon, there's a lot of softwares like Jungle Scout comes to mind, Helium 10 comes to mind. What's the other one? Unicorn Smash. Like there's a bunch of them that look at like the sales velocity of products on Amazon and tell you like if you sort through them once you actually go through them, and you can like literally see like what's selling well right now and also what's been selling well for like the year, the month, etc., etc. So there's a lot of softwares out there, and obviously there's no specific software that is going to look at Facebook Marketplace, to my knowledge at least, but there are softwares out there for other marketplaces, and what that basically is a microcosm of interest in a certain product or a certain, product category, right? And then you can take that data, because obviously it's very, very similar to the type of people that are going to be looking to on Facebook, right? It doesn't specifically correlate, or like, I guess it doesn't like, it's not perfect, but it's a good idea, and it will get you starting to think about if there's a product that's selling a lot on Amazon or eBay, or if there's something that's, a hot item this month on eBay, chances are it probably will be a hot item if priced accordingly, if listed well on Facebook Marketplace, okay? So second is you can use software that's also gonna work very, very well, but there's not, to my knowledge, one specifically for Facebook Marketplace right now, but correct me if you know one, drop it in the comments. I'd love to honestly know it myself, okay? So third is that Facebook will actually tell you, what people are looking for. And I haven't seen this as an option too much, like looking through on the computer. But if you go to mobile, let me actually find it really fast. If you open up the Facebook app and you click like the very bottom of the marketplace, and then you go to selling on the top left, and keep in mind, depending on when you're watching this, because they're constantly changing the way that things look here, this might this might look very, very different for you, like if you're watching this in a couple months. But so you want to go to the marketplace icon on the bottom right now, then you want to go to the selling on the top, or just find your selling thing, and then you're going to see something that's like insights, right? If you scroll on that top bar with all those little gray things, you're going to see insights, okay? Chances are you probably already know how to get there, right? That's going to show your cancellation rate, your missed handling rate, how many listing views, how many saves, all that good data that you can kind of see, like to kind of gauge like how your listings are doing. But then if you see toward the bottom, it says see listing recommendations. And so if you click this, you can see it basically says buyers are currently shopping for items in these categories. If you look at these categories and items like this and you start to see patterns, chances are those are also hot selling items on Facebook Marketplace. So I haven't tested that too crazily. I've done it with a couple of different products, and I honestly forget which one it was. Handheld, like portable games, which completely different topic. Like apparently, I don't really even know if that's against the terms of service on Facebook, but like every once in a while when you list something, obviously you'll get like that little like, this may go against our terms of service, and you can't list that, right? So like the perfect example of something that did work very, very well is I was seeing like Nintendo Switch games and like Nintendo Switch things all the time. So I listed a bunch of Nintendo Switch stuff, and like every single time it was like, it flagged me as like potentially going against terms of service. So what I did is I just went out and I listed like a bunch of generic handheld games, some from Walmart, some from Amazon, some from other suppliers as well, which I always recommend going with other suppliers if possible. I've talked about that in countless videos, but like, those portable video game systems started selling very, very well in high freaking margins. Like I'm talking like 200% margins because, you know, when you're buying a Nintendo Switch for like 250 bucks or whatever that is, and you come back to these handheld games where like you can buy like one that houses like 200 games on it for like 30 bucks, you can mark that up to like 75, 60, 59.99 very, very easily and stuff like that, okay? So to get off on a tangent there, like it seems like 50% of the listings, every single time I list a portable one, like half of them go through and the other half get flagged as like these may go against the terms of service. So honestly, I don't know if they're against the terms of service. You can look into it, but that's just an example of ways that I was able to use like the suggested different listings on mobile, find a hot selling product, and it's worked for me, okay? So that's number 3. Number 4 is to reverse engineer your competitors' best listings. And I've talked about this in other videos, and I don't personally do this myself, mainly because I like the other ways better. And I'm sure that people will come out as this gets like more mainstream. People will come out with software to kind of like snipe different listings and your competitors on Facebook. Right now, the way that I'm doing it, well, I'm not doing it, but the way that I know that you can do it, and I've talked about before, is if you, for example, right? If you're watching a YouTube video, right? And you can do this with me, but chances are you're not gonna be able to figure out what my best selling products are, or if you wanna even spend the time, you probably can. And I'm also moving away from my main profile, so like I'm still listing there obviously, but I have another friend's profile that I'm listing from as well, because I know personally, like I've made tutorials in the past showing my profile, and people, you know, obviously know my profile from being in like the Resale University group and stuff like that. So like, it's smarter to list from other profiles so that in the future, obviously, if there are softwares like that, or if people do want to spend the time to reverse engineer my listings, nobody really knows what profile I'm listing from currently. So I still am listing from my personal profile, but I'm obviously moving that to a different profile as well, which is clearly smart for a lot of reasons. But so what you can do if you're watching a YouTuber and you know their profile, like their Facebook profile, because on Facebook, it's not like Amazon or eBay. You can't really hide behind like a seller account. You can't remain anonymous in a lot of ways. Sometimes you can, obviously, but chances are you can find that person. Or if you're in a Facebook group and somebody's selling that, they're telling you that they're selling X amount of, you know, something a month, or they're making X amount of profit, what you can do is you can a lot of times click on that person's profile, see where they're living, or even if they're not, it doesn't show you where they're living, like their town, but most of the time it will, because a lot of people have that as like a public, you know, thing on their profile. And so what you can then do is take their name, go into Marketplace, and expand your radius out like 500 miles, which is the max currently, and search a bunch of different locations in the US roughly with your radius maxed out if you don't know where they are, and you can search their name, and chances are like one of the first items that pop up will be their item, and then you click on it, you can see their profile, you can find their profile, see all their listings. It works very, very well, and then obviously you can see what they're selling, right? So obviously that's great because there's transparency there. There's visibility there. You can find other people's profiles and see everything that they're selling, right? The issue with that is if they're selling a lot of things or listing a lot of things, chances are you're probably not really going to know what their hot selling products are. So some workarounds for that is like, you can always basically see, you can't currently, at least to my knowledge, I haven't checked this too much, but the couple times I did look into it, I didn't see it. You can't currently see like how many views or how many buys a listing is getting. And so it's not like eBay in that sense on an eBay listing, but what you can do is you can see like what types of items they're listing a lot of, what types of items they're listing frequently and stuff like that. That way, chances are if they're listing like 20 different things in a row that are all in the same category, that's working very, very well for them, right? And then you can reverse engineer their listings. You know, you can download their pictures, do a reverse image search, or you can look at their listing, copy like the title. Chances are most people aren't changing their titles very much, and find where their supplier is, and then list all those products as well and snipe their sales. That's another way. I don't necessarily recommend that you do that, and it might be more work than it's worth, honestly, but in the future I'm sure there will be softwares out there that will do this for you, but you can do this if you want to, right? So for example, if like a perfect example of how this would work is like if there was a Facebook group where somebody was like, oh, I'm making 20 grand profit this month doing this Facebook Marketplace drop shipping, and then you go find their profile and they have like 50 items listed, in that case it's probably worth it, right? Reverse engineer all those 50 listings and list them all yourself. You can probably steal a good portion of that profit, even if you wanted to undercut them, right? I'm not advocating for this, but you asked the question, I answer this question all the time. So here's a video answer of my best ideas right now of how you can find winning products for Facebook Marketplace. So that's number 4, reverse engineer your competitors' best listings, okay? Now, Number 5 is, best sellers or things that are suggested to you on other platforms, okay? Now, Amazon is a great place to see examples of this because there's literally a bestseller tab on Amazon. You can click it and then you can see all the categories and all the top bestsellers in there. It literally shows you all the data of like, these products are selling well, they're the best sellers right now in each category, right? So you can use those listings, or you can use those listings to give you ideas of where to find other products and from other suppliers and what types of products to list, okay? That's an example of that, okay? I wouldn't recommend necessarily going to Amazon's bestseller list and listing all their bestsellers list. That can get you sales, don't get me wrong, like it can. If you wanna go that route, that's fine. But I know so many people that already do this and already think it's a good idea because it's common sense to most people. So chances are if you do that, you're gonna be fighting an uphill battle. Your listings won't last very long because eventually there's gonna be a lot of competition there. And it's not really a long-term way to build a sustainable dropshipping business like this, in my opinion. So it can work for you, but I see it as a very short-term option. And honestly, those things change. Use it as inspiration. You can also, do that on other platforms as well, but Amazon's the best example of that, okay? So bestsellers on a certain platform, you can literally look at all the data, come up with good ideas, or even list them if you want to. And the bonus tip number 6 is just spend some time on Marketplace as a buyer yourself. See what the process looks like, see what other people are selling, see what catches your eye, because you can learn a lot this way, right? I do this from time to time, like when I'm bored or like when I'm sitting around, I have like 10 minutes. Last night I was going to like a dinner, right? And like 10 minutes before my fiance is getting ready, I'm sitting on the couch, I'm ready. So what I do, I go on Facebook Marketplace and I'm like shopping around, not buying anything necessarily, but just seeing like what the buying experience is like for a buyer. I think that can teach you a lot. A perfect example of this is like, when people first move into Amazon, they don't necessarily understand like how the buy box is shared, right? Or how a listing looks to a buyer, right? They only understand like what it looks like essentially in their Seller Central platform, how to list from the seller perspective. But you can learn a lot by understanding a buyer's psychology and their buying process on that platform, how they can choose different items, right? How they can actually search through items to find the best deals. Whatever the case is, those are random examples, but the key here is if you spend some time on Marketplace as a buyer yourself, you will probably learn a lot that will give you a competitive edge against other people that are literally just listing and not thinking about what it looks like to a buyer. A perfect example of this is I looked at a bunch of different Marketplace listings and I used to list things like super high and free shipping and put free shipping in the title, right? Like blah, 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 free shipping and just list it higher. But I've seen over the data, again, like I'm a scientist, right? That if you list it a little bit lower of a price, but mark your shipping up a little bit more, it looks more attractive to a buyer, and then as they're going through the buying process, once they click the buy now or they add it to their cart or they send an offer or whatever, then they pay the shipping afterwards, or they're pretty much already on like the page where they're about to buy it, right? So that seems to be working better for me now. It's still something I'm testing and still something I'm like split testing to see like what works better. So moral of the story here is spend some time on Marketplace as a buyer. You will learn a lot about the buying experience, buyer psychology, and those lessons that you learn will translate to you making better listings, which speak to buyers better and ultimately selling more and making more money, okay? So that's 6 tips. What are the best ways of finding winning products for Facebook Marketplace? I really hope they help.